Wherever you are, welcome. However you found this moment, I'm glad you did. I'm Dave, and this is Dave's Head, where perspective matters and clarity sets the tone. Let's get into it. What's in my head? First, we've been away for a while. Our last episode was in November, and there is a plethora of things that have happened since then. Besides my birthday, which is in December, we all know that, which is why I take off December. Got to celebrate the boy, got to celebrate the kid. But a lot has happened in this world. And the, the first thing that's in my head in 2026, unfortunately, and I really wish that it wasn't the case, but talking about what's been happening in this country with ICE and tariffs. There's been deadly ICE enforcement actions since we last were together. Eight people have died in dealings with ICE in this year alone, 2026. Now, most notably are Alex Preddy and Renee Nicole Good, both in Minnesota. And I'm 100% sure that Alex Preddy's death was ruled a homicide. I believe Renee's was as well. They both look like it to me. And the state of this country right now, the way that things are right now, we can go back to when President Obama was president. Very, very, very much so. Biden, not so much, not as prolifically anyway. But there was a notion that Obama was coming for your guns, the Second Amendment, that there wasn't free speech opportunities, the First Amendment, that he was just going to barge into your houses and do things, the Fourth Amendment. And these things all seem to be under attack right now. You think about Don Lemon with the First Amendment activity of recording a protest inside of a church and how he was arrested for that. And you think about how simply concealed carrying with a permit in Minnesota resulted in the death of Alex Preddy. If you watch that video, and it's disturbing to watch, it's sad to watch, it's angering to watch. For 2 nights, I had trouble sleeping. I had trouble getting rid of the anger that became my mindset because of watching that video. 8 people this year. 32 in 2025, the last day of the year. Now, let me preface this by saying I grew up in South Philly. And so shooting guns in the air New Year's Eve is not something that's new. It's not a new concept. It's not, you're not groundbreaking here doing it. Whether the act in itself is legal or not, it's something that happens. And it's not just something that happens in the cities. It's not something that happens just in the hood. It happens all over the country and around the world. People do it everywhere. Just shooting guns in the air. New Year's Eve, celebrating. And Keith Porter Jr. Was shot and killed New Year's Eve, firing his gun into the air. We don't know all the details. At least I don't know all the details on the story. But reportedly, that's all he was doing. And an off-duty ICE agent shot and killed him, presumably. And so these things are going to come out, maybe. And we'll get to that in a second. But when you look at this whole immigration thing, and you look at the rights being violated, you look at peaceful protesting no longer being something that's allowed. If you watch video after video after video of these mass ICE agents attacking people who are not interfering, because interference is a physical thing, right? You can say whatever you want. You can say you suck. You can give the middle finger. You can do all these things because they're protected by the First Amendment. Now, if you physically interfere with a quote unquote law enforcement officer, because there's some debate about the legality of what they're doing, but if you physically interfere, that's interference. No doubt about it. Standing on a curb, recording, not interference. Driving behind ICE agents, recording them, not interference. You're not physically preventing them from doing their job. You're following them to record them in the course of their duties, which is a right of every citizen of the United States of America. And so 8 people this year, hopefully not counting, but 8 people year to date. 32 people in 2025. And I prefaced a little bit earlier about getting this issue resolved, investigations, determining whether what they did was correct. Except we don't live in a normal society right now. We don't live in a a world and have a justice system that says, hey, we're going to investigate this. And if these people did something wrong, we're going to prosecute them. That's not how it's working, especially in Minnesota. The federal government is actively practicing obstruction, not sharing evidence and facts, not participating in the investigation the state is trying to do. That's the Department of Justice we have now, sadly enough. And we talk about the whole immigration deportation thing anyway. A lot of people love to say, well, Obama deported more. He was the deporter in chief. Yeah, he was. At one point in Obama's presidency early on, he was very aggressive in deporting people. I think about 1 million people were deported. He shifted throughout his presidency to just targeting those who were criminals and criminal background. But he did so very largely legally. Now, there were issues with ICE during Obama, specifically around how the housing, we'll call it housing, but the centers where those people were being kept, whether waiting for deportation, waiting for trial, waiting for whatever, the conditions weren't the greatest all the time because Operation Deport, and that wasn't what it was called, but Operation Deport in the net caught up so many people, there just wasn't adequate lodging. We're going to say lodging. It wasn't lodging, but there wasn't adequate space and conditions weren't that great. That was resolved throughout the presidency. And so the difference is Obama went about the legal way. He wasn't just stopping brown people. He wasn't just, allowing his ICE agents to walk around masked and beat people up with no repercussions. And so this whole premise that we're getting the worst of the worst, we knew was BS during the campaign, and we tried to tell you. And so, part of me, when I see a certain population now saying we were duped, now saying, I forget the song was like, I love Trumpy Trump or something like that. That was being sung in Florida. And the person who was singing that song was on the stage is now regretting because, repercussions have come to their door. I have a hard time feeling bad. And that's the state that we've gotten to, where you don't feel bad for your fellow neighbor if you tried to tell them that the fox was the fox and they kept letting them in. They kept, giving the axe to the trees, kept giving the chopper the axe, all the different sayings to say, basically, you let the person into your world. You did these things. How can I now feel bad for repercussions happening for to go way back into time in Black history? We are in Black History Month, but how can I feel bad for those chickens coming home to roost, right? To paraphrase. And so the whole notion of this, and don't get me wrong, I do feel bad. It's just part of me doesn't allow myself to get to a certain percentage of feeling bad because it's the I told you so part of me, right? So I told you so of a lot of people. Like, we try to warn you. We try to tell you a clown is a clown, a con is a con. We try to tell you this. And so the whole premise behind this with the DOJ and Trump and his people are doing is that they're getting the worst of the worst. Well, as of the end of January, about 70,000 immigrants were in ICE detention centers as of December. So as of January, the December numbers were about 70,000. 74% of those people had no criminal convictions. That means 26% did, but it's essentially 1 in 4. 1 in 4 were, quote unquote, the worst of the worst, which tells me you're just saying a brown person and scooping them up, and you might find them having no record later. Like, oh, we're sorry. But no, we got a reason to deport you now, though. I mean, think about, if you remember the story of the elderly gentleman who was legally here in the country. Again, I'll say legally here in the country, was taking a shower. ICE barges into his house, break in to his house, takes him out in the winter with t-shirt and might have been boxers, might have been shorts, don't remember. Held him in captivity, kidnapped him essentially for, I think it was 4 or 5, 6 hours, something like that. Realized, oh, he's a U.S. citizen. There you go. Go back home. Find your way home. We're not going to take you home. Find your way home. Because the due diligence is not being done to make sure that, quote unquote, the worst of the worst are actually what's being picked up. That's like me walking down the street and, maybe one day I'm rocking my hat on or something the right way. Or I got a nice colored vacation shirt on that has a big taco and a tequila on it. They snatch me up thinking I'm a well-tanned Hispanic. I'm a born and raised U.S. citizen. Part of me will absolutely resist, just like everybody else should. If you're a U.S. citizen, ICE, get the fuck away from me. And it's sad that we've got to get to this point, and it's sad that those words, those actions of resisting may get you killed because they're like a hair trigger all day long. They're looking for violence. They're looking to either bring it or continue it. Usually it's bring it. But we now live in a society where accountability and justice are just kind of these clever, toothless words. Right? That accountability, what's that? This administration? These times? Justice? Renee Nicole Good deserves justice. Alex Preddy deserves justice. Keith Porter Jr. deserves justice, and so many more. Want more clarity, perspective, and real conversation? Tune in to Dave's Head Podcast. Every episode delivers insight, conversation, and stories that make you think, and maybe even smile a little. Whether YouTube, Spotify, Apple, the Alive Podcast Network, or your preferred source, subscribe, follow, tune in, and share with anyone who needs to hear it. Don't you miss a single episode. Your next great conversation starts in Dave's head. And if Trump has anything to say about it or do with it, it'll still be that way. No accountability, no justice. Thinking about terrorists, farmers, absolutely getting crushed right now. Absolutely getting crushed. And it's sad. It's very sad. It's absolutely sad that farmers are getting crushed because of the terrorists that this president has retaliated with. Look at Canada. Oh, they put out an ad using, I think, Reagan's own words. Nothing false about it, fake about it. It's facts. It's his words. It's a quote. I think they actually use a speech. Suddenly, free trade that we have in Canada is no longer free. Okay. Because Baby Orange threw a temper tantrum. Got it. Great policy. Thank you. But it's part of the same situation. Farmers are part of the same situation. The I told you so crowd. The I told you so crowd. We try to tell you. So many people try to tell you that electing this maniac will get you chaos. And ladies and gentlemen, we're a year in. Just a year in. But all these things that are going on, this cycle of political distraction is declining public trust. Raise your hand if you actually trust this government. Not your state, not your local, federal government. Raise your hand if you trust it. Raise your hand if you trust this government to do the right thing, whether it's politically, whether it's justice-wise or legal and law-wise, right? Because remember, law and order, quote-unquote law and order, that was the rallying cry during the campaign. Not a lot of law and order going on these days. Just saying. There's a question of accountability and whether full truth, whether in this and other things, will actually reach the public. It's a question. It's always going to be there. I mean, do I really have to say it? Think about the Epstein files. Right? 3 million documents, I think it was, that's been released in a redacted form. 3 million not released because they choose not to. It has nothing to do with anything, Pam Bondi says. I think that's her name. Pam Blondie. That's what she should be called. But the law says you release everything. Accountability, justice, non-existent. We're going to choose to not follow the law because we determine nothing relevant in these other 3 million documents. So you tell me about 50% of what you have is extremely relevant, but we're going to redact things as we so choose fit. And they've been so bad at that redacting thing that the first time they put stuff out, they used some redacting system that literally just allowed you to select all and see all the words. Just idiocy. And the second time, we're just going to redact stuff, things that are, literally talking about molesting children or setting up children to be molested. And you redact out who was from or who was to or both. Why are you protecting people? There's a thing that I saw that I think Pam Blondie said, Blondie, we're going to call her Pam Blondie. She tries to act tough. She tries her little Trump love fest spiel in Congress, either yesterday, today, whatever. Hobnobbing, grimy knees, all that stuff. She's a character. Piece of shit character, but a character. But I saw a thing where she essentially said, and I'm paraphrasing, that essentially if we prosecuted all the people in the Epstein files, that the system would crumble or come crashing down. I say 100% burn that shit down. If there are people sitting in D.C., Capitol Hill, executive branch, legislative branch, judicial branch. And I think I saw Clarence Thomas, the justice, quote unquote, Justice Clarence Thomas, name mentioned as well now. I say burn it all down. If you were in this list doing things that facilitate, participate in, connecting, whatever, with violating children, I mean, these are the worst Christians ever, right? They claim to be Christians. They're the worst. If you're a part of this, be gone. Either prosecuted or your political career, your legislative career, your judicial career, all of it done. And why is that so hard to do? Because it's power over people. It's power over justice. It's power over accountability. The administration we have now. That's the political world and government world we live in right now. Until we do something about it, that's how it's going to be. Or until some hacker, and I'm not saying I want this to happen. I'm not saying that I hope that it happens. I'm saying it'd be interesting if it did happen. That some hacker decided, you know what? I'm going to go get them Epstein files. And I'm going to drop it all over the internet. Wouldn't be the first time. I mean, the old Trumpy was begging Russia to hack into computers of Hillary Clinton. Sounds like free speech. Oh, some hacker go hack and get the Epstein files. I'm not saying I'm a facilitator or a part of it, but it'd be kind of cool to see the news break and say, hey, finally, we got the truth. Bad Bunny is a Puerto Rican rapper who performed at halftime of Super Bowl 60, Super Bowl LX, not Licks, LX, along with Lady Gaga, grass people, utility poles. A Grammy was given away to the poor young kid who was harassed and kidnapped by ICE. A LA local taco spot owner, which was kind of cool. They did shaved ice was there. There's some dancing and shaking. But there's a whole cultural backlash about this now. About this Spanish language. Oh my God. And immigrant visibility. You know, MAGA, since the Super Bowl, has ramped up their fake outrage machine. You know, they're they were so outraged the fact that a United States citizen, because that's what Puerto Ricans are, who happen to speak Spanish. And by the way, literally the number one artist in the world. The Super Bowl, the biggest stage for one night in the world annually, shouldn't want the number one artist in the world. Make that make sense. Cranked up their fake outrage machine and they did their own thing. Put on some Timu, Vanilla Ice, Milli Vanilli mashup in the form of Kid Rock. And they did a concert that didn't even get the viewership of the Puppy Bowl. I'm not even joking. The halftime show, 135 million viewers. I think their peak was like 140 something million, but like 135 was a number. The Puppy Bowl, somewhere between 12 and 13 million. I don't know if you watched the Puppy Bowl. I haven't watched it in years, but I did watch it a couple times. It's entertaining. It's nice if you got kids. It's kind of cute. Timu, Vanilla Ice, Milli Vanilli guy. He got between 5 and 6 million. And there's reports that say that they they use some bots to try to ramp up that viewership. And still, if they did do that, still didn't get half of the Puppy Bowl, which I think is appropriate. And so now some in DC want to, quote unquote, investigate Bad Bunny and get the FCC involved. And I wish I was joking. I'm not. It's a joke that they want to do this, but I'm not joking. They want to show their fake teeth, right? We're going to enforce something. Get the FCC for this performance, but again, stay complicit in the Epstein cover-up. They've got all the chest pumped out for this, right? We got to see if Bad Bunny violated some FCC rules. Someone's going to pay. Hey, we got these kids that were violated over here, 1,000 people, witnesses, 6 million documents. Want to take a look at that? Investigate that? No, we should move on. We should move forward. Okay. Again, they're violating the law by not releasing the files. So what's kind of interesting that's happened in the last couple days too is that lawmakers have been privy, because we are privy to view the unredacted, quote unquote unredacted, because there still were redactions they're reporting as well, but versions of the files, and have made clear in no uncertain terms that, one, they say Trump is mentioned 1 million times in what they've been able to look at. A million. That's crazy. And I hope I'm not getting the numbers wrong. They said a whole bunch. I believe they said 1 million. And it's even coming out that people in his administration lied about contact with Epstein. One guy, I thought it was kind of weird when I actually read the document, because he was on his boat. He was looking to connect with Epstein, and he mentioned that he was with another family. And then, like, he didn't mention the ages of the other couple at all, but he listed his children's ages and a couple, I'm assuming, unless he had like six children, but in the couple's children's ages. I just thought it was creepy, right? That you would list the ages of these children, almost like you're trying to, put them on the auction block or put them up for review. It just, given the context of everything, it's creepy, creeps me out. But I wish that, one day I wake up and I see my phone's blowing up with alerts, or I just kind of peruse socials and see something breaking news where some hacker or whistleblower just one day said, fuck it, and hit a button and just released everything. Because again, if telling the truth and prosecuting those who violated some of the most innocent people in this whole world, which are children, if doing that collapses the system, one, the system wasn't as strong as we all thought, which probably is true. Two, the people we empower or look up to or trust and or all that were not worth that empowering, looking up to, or trust. And if exposing that brings everything down, then again, I say, let it burn. Like my man said in Dead Presidents, money to burn. Except in this case, let it burn. That's what's in my head. My favorite part of my podcast is my G.R.I.N, which stands for Great Reason to Be in Love with Now. A couple days ago, the Seahawks beat, or AKA dominated, the Patriots in the Super Bowl. As an Eagles fan, I can't say I'm too upset about the Patriots getting dealt to ass in the Super Bowl. Kind of happens. Sort of deserves it. But many of us absolutely knew it was going to happen. I won pretty much every pick'em pool I played this year. And if I had started the one pool I was in week 1 instead of week 5, based on everything I picked, I would have won that one too. But I definitely thought that the Seahawks were going to crush the Patriots. I thought it would be closer just because it's Super Bowl, and sometimes those games where it looks like on paper it just should be belt to ass turn out to be closer than it should be. That wasn't the case here. One of the storylines out of that, besides Bad Bunny and people's fake outrage, is the performance of second-year quarterback for the Patriots, Drake May. Let's not sugarcoat this at all. He did not have a good game. At all. At all. I remember a time when one of my favorite quarterbacks for my favorite team lost the Super Bowl a few years ago. And although he did play well, and many people think he should have gotten the MVP even in a losing effort, the result was in essence a failure. It was a failure. But he won the Super Bowl last year. And I'm talking about QB1, Jalen. You know him as Jalen. I call him Jalen. But as Valentine's Day approaches, as it enters the chat this weekend, right? There are some people who are just not celebrating Valentine's Day, whether it's because of disdain for the day, whether it's because pain around the day, or just choosing not to think about it. I think failure, whether it's a Super Bowl, whether it's around Valentine's Day and reminding you of, things that you considered a failure, whether a relationship or marriage, failure is part of the story of the next success. Any lessons learned from failure yesterday get you through today's pain to build you up, to prepare you to achieve and receive tomorrow's success. My own personal story is a testimony to this. I had to get through the failure of yesterday, quote unquote, yesterday. I had to learn those lessons and heal. And I've talked about this several times on this podcast. And if not for issues with my guests, that was going to be a topic of conversation for my guests. No guests this episode, you get me. But I had to get through that, heal and grow and be ready to achieve and receive tomorrow, or I'm calling today, success. And it's because of that failure that I was able to understand my mistakes. I was able to grow. I was able to put myself first where I didn't before. I was able to open myself up after learning those lessons and receive love and give love in a way that is free, right? Now, I have no premonition or thoughts about my current relationship, engagement, future marriage not being what is a part of my life for the rest of my life. However, what I went through prepares me in case something like that should happen, which it won't, just saying. But I am prepared because I've learned those lessons. Transfer to football. Let's get away from putting negative connotations around my relationship and engagement and marriage. Let's put it in football terms. I played football almost nonstop for 30 years. And I was actually thinking about this the other day. I was thinking as a defender, whether I played safety in high school or corner in college and corner in semi-pro and all the different leagues and tournaments I played in, I thought about how many times I gave up a touchdown. It dawned on me that the number was probably less than 10 total. And I look, I'm meticulous. I went back and started thinking season through season through season through season. And I think it might be less than 10. Semi-pro, it's 2, I believe. 3 if you count the interception I got in the end zone, stood up, started to try to return and realized, oh crap, get down. But before I could actually get down, fumble the ball, and they recovered it for a touchdown, causing us to lose the game. Probably the worst play I've ever made in football. That's a true story, by the way. But I thought it's worse is 15. Let's say throughout 30 years, 15 touchdowns, but probably around 10, but we'll say 15. Giving up way more passes than that, right? Completions. Giving up long passes, short passes, made tackles, missed tackles, caught passes on offense, drop passes on offense, score touchdowns, didn't score. And if you put it in football terms, and especially this is always said about corners, that corners need to have short memories for success at the cornerback position. Cornerback especially, because almost every single play, you are engaged with covering someone, defending someone, or making a play on something. And you have to have short memory because of that. The same applies to what we're talking about here, that you go through things in life and sometimes you give up a pass, sometimes you give up a touchdown, sometimes you miss a tackle. That's considered, for that play at least, a failure. And it's learning from that, forgetting the failure. It's moving forward, making the next play or the next play. That's what makes corners great, that they have short-term memory or that they have resilience. Psychology Today has an article called Resilience, where they define what resilience is and what creates it. I'm going to quote, resilience is a psychological quality that allows some people to be knocked down by the adversities of life and come back at least as strong as before, rather than letting difficulties, traumatic events, or failure overcome them and drain their resolve. Highly resilient people find a way to change course, emotionally heal, and continue moving towards their goals. And some factors they say that aid in this and make it possible for someone to have resilience in order to move forward: positive attitude, optimism, the ability to regulate emotions, and the ability to see failure as a form of helpful feedback. They also say a genetic predisposition for resilience, for instance, but early environment and life circumstances play a role in how resilient genes are ultimately expressed. And so you talk about the ability to absorb or engage failure or turn those things in life that happen into lessons and sometimes even positive outcomes. That comes from either, in their case, what they're saying, resilience hardened over time, or maybe even genetic predisposition to handling things in life a lot better. Some people say Capricorns are genetically predispositioned to being able to handle tough events, tough situations, trauma. And so, what are some strategies for becoming more resilient? They say healthy habits, getting enough sleep, eating well, exercise. Those things can reduce stress, which may in turn boost resilience. Similarly, being sure to nurture close relationships can help an individual find support when trouble arises. I've talked about this before for many seasons. The circle that you have. The circle gets smaller, gets bigger, gets tighter, gets stronger. But what doesn't change about that circle is who is in it, right? Those are people that you trust. Those are people that you can count on. Those are people you can call when you're down and they're still there. When you're up here, up high, they're there. When you're low, they're still there and they have your back. Those are people in your circle. Now, the circle can grow because other people fall into it that you trust. That circle will get reduced as you realize you need to go out this circle, whether they remove themselves or you remove them. But healthy habits, right? I mean, these things, I think the first part of this answer is something that hopefully common sense, probably not the right way to put it, but we implicitly feel, right? Instinctively is the word I'm looking for. We instinctively feel we need to do: eating healthy, getting sleep, exercise. Those things provide us energy. A great saying is, someone told me, and they tell me all the time, been told for years all the time, that you can't be there for other people if you yourself are not healthy enough to be there for yourself, right? If you aren't good, you can't make sure somebody else is good. And so if that's eating healthy, getting enough sleep, exercising, in order to have the energy, to have the resilience to get through the tough parts of life, Dave's Ed Podcast is now part of the Alive Podcast Network, the home of Black voices, where community, culture, and creatives live. Dave's Ed Podcast adds to the vast catalog of titles available on the Alive Podcast Network app on iOS and Android. Check out Dave's Ed Podcast and many others on the Alive Podcast Network app, the home of Black voices. That's important. How can I be more resilient in a crisis? Now, any crisis, every crisis, I say, but they say any crisis can test resilience. Looking to loved ones for help and emotional support, increasing self-care, and focusing on the aspects of the situation that are under your control can help you weather almost any storm. I think the biggest three words there are under your control. It's not about being more resilient per se. I think it's understanding what you can and can't do to help make a situation better. What impact can you have to move the needle from storm to calm? Focus on that. And if you focus on that and you get through those things that you can control, you move that needle as far as your impact will take it. That's all you can do. If it's still drizzling, okay, we're going to deal with the drizzle then. If it's still storming, okay, we'll get through this storm. That's how you got to look at it. What can I actually do? Then you can rely on that circle or rely on people who can do something to move the needle further. But start with what you can do. That will build your resiliency. Because as you realize, well, hey, shit, I can do this. I can get me from point A to point B. It might not be point Z, the end of this, but it's going to get me from point A to point Q, right? I know I can do those things in a moment of crisis. I know I can do those things in a moment of difficulty, in a moment of pain, in a moment of sorrow. I know what I can do. Then when you're faced with a situation where you need to go from A to Q, you know you can do that and you can get there. If you're faced with a situation where you need to go from A to T, right? Some of y'all thinking, wait, Q or yeah, I'm right. When you go from a situation that you need to go from A to T, you know you can get to Q, but maybe you'll trust yourself a little more to take the steps needed to get from Q to T. That's how you build resiliency. That's how you know that you've had what it takes in a tank, so to speak, in a crisis. What are the benefits of accepting failure? Now, I'm a Capricorn. We don't like failure. We don't like a failure at all. We want to do everything perfectly. It's impossible. We know this. We don't accept this. Becoming okay with mistakes helps build better emotional regulation. Saying that sentence to a Capricorn is like slapping us in the face, by the way. I'm going to repeat it. Becoming okay with mistakes makes building better emotional regulation, helps build better emotional regulation. The rest of that sentence is, which can benefit someone in a wide variety of domains, from relationships to the workplace. Finishing up, further, analyzing and accepting a setback can provide lessons that will stop failure from repeating itself in the future. Now, I talked about way at the beginning of this segment about divorce and how my journey took me from going through and using my analogy yesterday to understanding today to being able to receive tomorrow. Well, that's the benefit that you gain from accepting failure, accepting what happened yesterday so that you can apply and learn the lessons for every today it takes, right? Because I say today, and I'm saying it's like this is a 3-part thing. Well, that second stage might be second A, second B, second C, second D, all the way to Z, and then second 1, second 2, second 3. If you know letter to number, in order to get through that second phase where you've accepted the failure and now you're applying the lessons to grow, to build your resilience, to trust, to accept, to be open up, to receive whatever it is you need to receive as a person, you've got to analyze things. You've got to analyze your part, because we always got a part. And you've got to analyze the external things, right? And that will, and I know they say stop failure from repeating itself in the future. I sort of agree with that, but I sort of don't, because sometimes failures happen, right? It might not be the exact same path you took, but you come in and landing in the same pothole, right? And sometimes you can, think about the video games back in the day where you got to go through a journey, like you're on stage 1 of Super Mario World or something like that, right? And you get to the part where the monster jumps out of the little tunnel and bites you. Well, okay, you saw it. So now next time you come, you know to slide to the left and let him go, and then you go past it. Well, then there's a freaking quicksand hole that you didn't see before. Well, now you fall in that, right? And so you learned a lesson about the little monster. You learned a lesson about the quicksand. And so now you go back again. You get past both of those two things. And now you got a drawbridge and swing it back and forth. You miss time, you fall into the lake, right? It's building on the lessons so that you can grow and grow and grow and grow. And sometimes that failure and that acceptance thing, well, using the Super Mario analogy, you failed yesterday, now you're on today. So today is A, you failed again. Now you're AB, failed again. Now you're ABC, failed again, ABCD, right? Whatever it takes to get to the point where you can be prepared to accept and receive. Lastly, before we go, I started this, I believe last year or last season, where at the end of an episode, I leave you with a quote. And so I'm going to continue that streak, continue that habit with season 7. And thanks again for tuning in. This quote is from Confucius. Might know him, might have heard him before. Our greatest glory is not in never failing, but in rising every time we fall. The beauty about failure is the opportunity for future success. And if we don't embrace that, if we don't figure out a way to accept that failure is going to happen and to see it as an opportunity to learn and grow and succeed in the future, every failure will be a catastrophe, not only in our minds and our emotions, physically in our bodies, in our actions that come after that or that follow, until we're comfortable. And I use that word very loosely because nobody wants to be comfortable with failure, but accepting, I should say, in the process of failing, right? I don't want anybody to become comfortable or accepting of failure. I want you to be comfortable or accepting of the process of failure and everything it takes to learn from it, grow from it, and future succeed. Until we do that individually, not collectively, because that's not how life works, then you truly cannot build up the resilience you need to endure the daily grind, the daily problems, the daily situations of life. And so I wish you well building your resiliency, accepting and being comfortable with the process of failure. And I wish you every success tomorrow and every tomorrow after that. So thank you for stepping in Dave's Head. Until next time, make sure to get your daily dose of perspective and always be the tone setter in your life. That's all for this episode of Dave's Head. If you enjoyed this episode, I'm sure you'll love similar content in the Alive Podcast Network app. Plus, you can support this podcast and enjoy ad-free listening to nearly 100 other Black-hosted podcasts. Download the iOS or Android app, become a member, and experience unlimited access to Black-hosted content week after week. Follow, like, and or subscribe to this podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and or X at Dave's Head Pod, and on YouTube at Dave's Head Podcast. For more information and links to all things Dave's Head, check out our website at daveshead.card.co. Episode premiere on the second and fourth Fridays of the month. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, enjoy life because life should be fun. Take care.